Bad information is nothing new. As a fact-checking expert, Tom Truenard knows this. He's one of the founders of Fathom, a company that KSAT partnered with last year to create the Trust Index. But Truenard has noticed a growing trend in false claims being made. It's becoming more widespread.
What we've started to see now, which maybe 10 years ago when I started working on this kind of stuff didn't happen, is really around any big news story, there's going to be a certain amount of misinformation.
So, if you're seeing a lot of headlines about one topic or news event, it's only a matter of time before that information is taken and twisted into disinformation. And it's not easy to pinpoint who's to blame.
We're all creators and consumers of media, so we're all responsible for the quality of the ecosystem.
And we're all going to be responsible for cleaning it up.
You have to sort of feel the sense of responsibility that the information that you share could lead somebody to make a decision that could have really big consequences for their life.
That requires all of us to practice media literacy, being able to assess which news clips and stories we consume are trustworthy.
We haven't had a good opportunity to practice this and really kind of analyzing who are these sources and how do they fit together.
Because now it's easier than ever for unreliable news stories to make their way into our social media feeds.
Previously, you kind of had to search this stuff out. So if you wanted to find some weird stuff, you had to go on weird websites. You had to go on somethingawful.com, or you had to go into kind of like the bowels of 4chan on Chan boards. But now this stuff that used to be on the periphery of the internet has made its way into the largest social sites.
Renee Hobbs is the director of the Media Education Lab at the University of Rhode Island. She says it's never been more important to practice media literacy skills and to understand how social media algorithms have created echo chambers.
I don't know if you've ever been to somebody's house and you say, okay, let's watch Netflix. And you go and you sit down to watch Netflix and you notice like their Netflix looks nothing like yours, right? It's a completely different set of choices that are presented.
That's one example of the echo chamber in practice, but it's also true on YouTube, Facebook, and Amazon, and so many others.
Understanding that and being sensitive to that can really help us start to realize how our own choices are narrowing or shaping, creating those filter bubbles that we talk about.
So what can you do to get out of the bubble?
One thing that I do is I try not to consume news through a social media platform.
Go directly to a news site instead, like KSAT.com, for instance. That way you can choose which stories you want to read instead of an algorithm picking for you. Be wary of any stories that elicit a particularly strong emotional reaction.
Don't let the first thing be that you share it with as many people as you can. Take a pause, think about it, think about what the source's motivations might be here. Think about, is there some context that's missing? Is there something which, if true, would mean that this thing doesn't make sense? Start to ask, pretty normal questions about the kind of things that you're seeing.
And if you notice someone in your life buying into a conspiracy, try to have a conversation without resorting to insults.
It's really difficult to say, to your uncle or your grandmother, this logic doesn't make sense, or, we really need to look at the source for that.
These conversations are especially hard right now when we've become so polarized.
Can we identify areas of common ground, even while acknowledging that we've kind of put a thumbtack in this other area where we totally disagree? Can we still respect each other's humanity and say that we are not horrible human beings because we see this thing differently?
When you are consuming news, practice skepticism.
Skepticism and the scientific method is almost antithetical to the human condition. We're as humans, we trust each other. We form small tribes. That's just evolutionary fact. And we have to kind of fight against that.
Stay vigilant and be on the lookout for misinformation. But no, you don't have to mistrust everything.
There's a lot of good information online too.
There are reliable, trusted news sources out there.
You have to slow down how you're interacting online and approach the information that you see on social networks with a a slightly more cautious mindset.
And it's important not to get discouraged and avoid news altogether.
It's actually kind of dangerous to choose to rely on your orbit of friends for your news about the world, because that's what happens, right? You might not be watching the news, but the people around you are getting it from somewhere, and then they're telling you.